Welcome back to the NEOS tutorial. Let's take a look at creating your own node types. I have already prepared my own site package and filled it with a little bit of default content. And what I now would like to achieve is to create a new node type which will appear here and render a custom content element. To do that, let's switch to our IntelliJ and navigate to Packages, Sites, My Site, which is the site package, and the configuration folder. And we can see that by default NEOS already creates a NodeTypes.yaml file. While it is possible to use that to store all your node types in, things will quickly get out of hand if you have too many. So let's just delete that NodeTypes.yaml file and create a new one, which we name after our node type which we'll create. Let's call it NodeTypes, and it's important for it to start with that .content. I like to group node types by content and document, but that's just a personal preference. And then custom content.yaml. And this way I can find it again later if I look for it. Now the node type we'll be creating will be called my.site, which is my site package, custom content. And the first thing we need to decide is whether it's going to be a content node type or a document node type. I've already given my decision away here. It's going to be a content node type. So I'll say supertypes and have it inherit from neos.neos:content. And this means that my node type will render something on a page. It will be a content element. And the only other thing we need in order for it to be rendered by NEOS is to give it a label. So I'll say UI label custom content. And I need to define a group in which it appears. The group is this thing up here. So it can be either general, structure, or plugin. And I want it to be a general element. So I'll say group general. Now if I reload this page, I should already see my new content element here. There it is, custom content. When I insert it, of course, NEOS shows an exception because it doesn't know what to render. And we can see here that by default, NEOS already looks for a template which is stored in my site package under private template NodeTypes custom content.html. So let's create that file by going to resources, private, templates, and then create the NodeType folder here, NodeTypes, and create that custom content.html file, which NEOS is looking for. And we can just have it render a paragraph saying my custom content element. Let's refresh and see what happens. And we can see here that my custom content element is rendered. Now, of course, a node type without any properties doesn't do very much. So let's give it some. Switch back to the YAML file and set the properties key. And our first property will be called text, and it will be of type string. Now we want that node type to be editable via the inspector. And if we switch back to NEOS and check out this node type, we can see that the only inspector tab currently available is the metadata tab, which is not a very good tab to place custom properties on. So we'll define our own. We'll go to UI, group, and then say inspector. And we have the key tabs. Define our custom tab here. And we'll give it a position of 10, so it shows up in the first place. Give it a label of properties and an icon. And let's use the icon pencil for it. And now we can define a group on that tab. Let's call that custom as well. Give it a position of 10, so it shows up first on that tab. Give it a label, which we'll call props, and an icon, and we'll use that icon pencil here as well. And now we can assign that property to the group which we just defined, just by saying UI, and then we can say label text. This is the label that would show up for the field that the inspector renders. And then inspector group custom, which is the one we defined up here. And it's assigned to the tab, which I forgot to add here. That's the most important thing, of course, tab custom. So this group knows on which tab it is. Let's go back to NIAS and see if that worked. Refresh the page. And we can see we now have a tab called properties with a group called props on that tab. And our text property appears here. So let's enter something here. Hello NIAS, press apply. And the property of our NodeType is now hello NIAS. Of course, it isn't rendered yet, but we can make that happen very easily because those properties are by default passed onto the template. So we can simply do text here and see what happens. And now hello NIAS appears here. Let's change it to something else. Hello watches, and press apply. Now, it doesn't change yet because we haven't told NIAS that this property influences the rendering of the content element. But we can do that easily by switching back to our YAML and saying reload if changed, true. Let's reload our page. Now it displays hello watches because we have loaded it. And let's change that once again to something new. Press apply. Now we can see that NIAS has understood, okay, if this is changed, I need to reload the page. Now, of course, NIAS is famous for its inline editing. So let's show you how to do that. We'll define another property, call that inline, which will also be of type string. And since it will be inline editable, we don't need any of this UI stuff here because that's only for the inspector. All we need to do is tell it that it is inline editable, which we can define UI inline editable true. And basically all we need to do now is go to custom content, wrap that all in a div, and render a second paragraph. And what we need here now is the inline editable view helper. So first we need to import the NIAS namespace of view helpers into our template here, which we'll do by saying namespace NIAS equals NIAS view helpers. And then we can use it here. And we'll say NIAS content element editable. And now all we need to do is give the property, which should be inline editable. And in my case, that property is called inline. Let's check and see if that worked. We reload the page. And now for this node type, we get a text field and we can enter something here. This is inline editable. And by looking up here, we can see that NIAS is actually saving something. If we publish that change and look at it, then we can see our inline editable property works as well.